What NSFW fact did you learn at an embarrassingly late age? My brother went the first 22 years of his life thinking that every woman in the entire world got their period during the last week of the month, like some kind of demonic clockwork. That tampons stay inside the woman. I thought they went in the bathroom, popped one in, and it soaked up all the blood, then they removed it, and were good for a few hours. That would be so much more convenient than the sometimes painful way they actually work. What a wet dream is. I remember in school being taught, but not knowing what it was. I even remember answering the question on a sex ed TED. Wet dreams are also referred to as nocturnal emissions. Blah blah blah. But I had no idea what they were talking about. I always thought a wet dream meant you peed yourself. Oh, you mean sheet sneezes? Not me, but an old roommate of mine. He comes in and asks me if my husband and I were gonna have sex that night. I told him probably not, because my husband got home late. He then asks me if his girlfriend can have one of my birth control pills because they didn't have any condoms. I told him no, because I have to take it. He asks me why, because I said my husband and I weren't gonna do anything. I told him you have to take it at the same time every day for it to work. He looked at me like an idiot, and that was the day I had to explain birth control to my 23-year-old roommate. This is the first one I'm currently guilty of not knowing. Guess I got confused with morning after pills. I'm an RN, and I told a patient I needed her to put a tampon in before we collected her urine sample because she had vaginal bleeding. She looked at me like I was an absolute idiot and said, "You can't do that. If you put the tampon in, how can the pee get out?" Mind you, this was a 25-year-old woman who also had 2 daughters. It took about 10 minutes of explaining for her to understand that you don't pee out of your vagina. I still don't think she believed me. Women wipe themselves with TP after going pee. Was in my mid-20s when I found that out. I hope you're a guy. I hope I'm too. You don't sound sure. I had to explain sex ed to my college roommate who was having sex with the 40-year-old pizza delivery guy. Unprotected, I had to explain pregnancy, birth control, the process, everything. She thought I was crazy. How did she think babies were made? When a mommy and daddy loves each other very much, a stork brings a baby in a basket. She must have thought she was going to be fine, since he delivers pizzas instead of babies. There's more than one size of condom. A proud macro tiny user myself. A little knob will do ya. At 18 years old, I had no fucking clue that balls just moved on their own. I sat and stared at his ballsack for a good 10 minutes, just in absolute awe. I felt like I was tripping on acid. The skin moved up and down, swirled around, turned to the left. I have never had my mind more blown than that moment of watching balls move around for the first time. Edit goddamn guys, my highest comment is about balls. I thought this was a known fact, that the skin can just move right before your eyes. Fascinating, is it not? Babe, take off your pants for a secretary? No, I just want to watch your personal lava lamp. Ladies have 3 holes in their bottom half. I don't know why, but this one hit me the hardest. Back in middle school, a friend would argue that girls peed out of their butthole and I argued that it was out of their vagina. The argument didn't really go anywhere because neither of us had any real proof. My friend told me he used to think girls peed from their buttholes, and he said when he first remembered getting diarrhea he thought he was turning into a girl. Apparently, Netflix and chill has a slang meaning I didn't know it had. While getting my hair cut the other day by a 20-something hairstylist, the conversation turned to what we were doing that weekend. Not having a lot going on that evening, I told her I wasn't doing much. She said the same. She said she was just going to sit at home that evening and relax. So I said, "Oh, Netflix and chill?" The look on her face told me immediately I had put my foot in my mouth. I simply smiled at her innocently. After a few awkward moments she said, "You don't know what that means, do you?" I confessed that I didn't. Like trying to explain something to her clueless grandfather, she made me aware of the subtext meaning. So, that was an uncomfortable haircut. My 32-year-old wife learned this one a couple months ago after an embarrassing Facebook post that both of our families saw. Even our parents knew what it meant. For whatever reason, I grew up thinking that men were supposed to have 3 testicles. I was a 13-year-old boy before learning the truth. I thought I was deformed, or maybe my third ball just hadn't developed yet somehow. I'm not really sure what I was thinking. I just remember the absolute embarrassment I felt when one of my friends found out about this misunderstanding. That there's movement involved in PIV6, rather than just insertion and laying there. Back in middle school I used to think sex meant touching the penis to the vagina. The thought of insertion or in-out motion hadn't even occurred to me. It wasn't until 7th or 8th grade I learned how sex works. We had our biology class and learned about the sperm and the egg. Then I went up to my friend after class and asked, so I get the sperm and the egg thing, but how does the sperm even get to the egg in the first place? He just laughed like he thought it was a joke and didn't answer me, so I did what any young boy would do and discovered internet porn. I had a general idea about sex from a very young age, but didn't officially understand the mechanics of intercourse until I was a young teen after I asked, embarrassingly loud, in class what a boner was. I knew what sex was from a fairly young age, but didn't know that boners were a thing. So I was so confused as to how a penis would get in there. Like, do you have to squish it in? I used to worry I'd get pregnant when I masturbated. I'm a guy. When I was in high school, my parents, my best friend and I were going somewhere. Parents in the front seat, me and my buddy in the back. While we were driving, my folks were listening to some oldies on the radio. There was an interview with the lead singer of Question Mark and the Mysterians. In the interview, he said the song 96 Tears was originally called 69 Tears, but they changed the name because they knew the song wouldn't get any airplay with the original title. Me, I don't understand why it wouldn't get played on the radio. 96, 69. They're just numbers. Awkward pause. My best friend leaned into the front seat and said, Mr. and Mrs. Groovy Brent, I've got this one. Later that day he explained what I had just asked my parents. Your best friend is a good guy and friend, and I hope your parents appreciated him. I very recently discovered that the clitoris is outside of the vagina. My first girlfriend never learned where it was, so I didn't think anything of it. My current girlfriend, when we started having sex, she said, don't forget the clit, and I went, what? The clitoris is outside the vagina, but the majority of it is actually internal. The outside part, the glands, is just the easiest to access. When I was a sophomore in high school I was awkward and regularly picked on. I thought I was super cool wearing LA Looks hair gel to style my hair with a duck butt. The stuff often dried and peeled and left white chunks in the hair if you touched it too much. So at the lunch table this girl goes, it looks like you have jizz in your hair, and I didn't know what that word was, so I just said yeah I do, and then nobody talked to me the rest of the day. I've never seen someone fail a quick time event in real life before. You even had a button. You pushed the wrong one. I thought being a bottom was when the guy was on the bottom of the girl. Only realized when someone jokingly asked if I was a power bottom, and I said oh yeah. They never let that one go. You see, the power bottom is actually generating the power by doing most of the work. You can suck and lick anything as long as you wash it off first. I used to be grossed out by oral sex because you either literally piss with those organs or come close to it. In elementary school, a friend and I were talking about what we knew about sex, trying to guess what the bases were. We both agreed, put things in your mouth was the last base because it's so gross. So, you're not alone. Not me, but I had a rather frustrating conversation with someone in high school on the bus about foreskins. He couldn't fathom how someone could be uncircumcised because, and I quote, how could you even pee then? The dude literally thought the foreskin covered the entire penis at birth, and you had to be circumcised so you could pee. A girl I know at school, high school, thought that penises had bones in them. Human ones don't. As a badger, yeah, you're nasty. My girlfriend in high school once rubbed my dick over my pants in my truck before a movie. When we talked about how that was later in the evening, she said that was my first hand job. She honestly thought that was a hand job. Got any similar stories? Leave it in the comments below.